From Ariana Grande and Dalton Gomez to Britney and Sam and Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner, we've seen a lot of celebrity divorces this year. Today, we're diving into specifically what a divorce means in the context of social media, where our lives play out for everyone to see. I'm joined by Kara Francis, who is a divorce lawyer turned divorce coach. Welcome to the show, Kara.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. And I want to give a special shout out to Olivia Dreisen Howell. She is the one who introduced us. Olivia is the founder of Fresh Starts Registry, which is an amazing registry and support site. If you're going through a big life change like a divorce, you can go ahead and create a registry on that site and find a lot of resources there. So shout out to Olivia. But I do want to say, if my husband saw my internet history when I was preparing for this interview, he would be very concerned because I've been doing a lot of research, obviously, on divorce and divorce coaching. So, Kara, I'd love if you could share more on your background and your experience as a divorce lawyer and what exactly a divorce coach does.
Of course. So I knew I wanted to be involved in the divorce world in some way from a pretty young age. I had an older sister who went through a divorce when I was in my teens, and that was my first exposure to divorce, and I could just see how empowering and transformative of an experience it was for her. And so I was like, I want to help people do that. At the time, the only way I knew how to do that was to become a lawyer. So that's what I did. That was my North Star all through high school, college, and law school. I wanted to be a divorce lawyer. And so I took all the tests and I read all the books and did all the things I had to do to become a lawyer and worked my way up to my dream law firm and got there. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to be really happy now. But unfortunately, it just wasn't the right fit for me. Turns out I actually am pretty conflict averse, which is ironic given that I became a divorce lawyer. And so I practiced as an attorney for about 6.5 years and saw a lot of different kinds of cases, kind of seen the most amicable to the most contentious. So I've seen everything in between as far as each end of the spectrum. So after I kind of started to figure out that being a divorce lawyer full time was not aligned with who I was as a person, I was wondering, well, what can I do that's still serving people in the divorce world? Because that was still very, very much a passion for me. And when I was a lawyer, several of my clients had divorce coaches. So that's how I learned about divorce coaches. And I was always so relieved when they did because I knew that they had that space to sort through their concerns and their challenges and their goals and just have somebody to listen to them full time. That way, when they showed up with me as the lawyer, we could just get right down to work and be the most efficient with our time possible. And so being a divorce coach really appealed to me. I like to talk to people. I like to listen to the stories of people's lives and be curious about that and ask questions. And so that's really what I do as a coach. So I provide objective, non-judgmental support. And first and foremost, I listen. Both of those things are quite rare in the divorce world because whether it's your spouse or your family, friends, your lawyer or other professionals in your case, they are not necessarily objective. They're more so trying to solve a problem, trying to maybe fix whatever situation you're in, and more advising you, telling you what you should do or what they would do if they were you. And so listening first and foremost with the goal to understand, not trying to fix you, not trying to fix a problem. I'm more so partnering with you to tap into the solutions and options that already exist so that you can choose how to move forward and have a more empowered divorce experience.
Yeah, I've got to say, before we met, I didn't even know a divorce coach was a thing. And it sounds like it's such an amazing resource to have when you're trying to navigate this. Because, yeah, trying to lean on friends and family, they want to help, but it's not always the best approach. And it can weigh on both people, the person going through the divorce and also as the friend or family member. So the fact that people like you exist and are here to help, I think, like you said, it can be very empowering. I think that's a a great adjective that we don't use enough to discuss divorce. So it was refreshing to hear that. And we'll get into the stigmas around divorce and kind of how the narrative is shifting there. But thank you for shedding light on your experience. So, as we've discussed before we even got on this interview, there have been a lot of topical, high profile divorces this year, a lot of celebrity divorces playing out in the public eye. So, from kind of a PR and fan standpoint, I want to break this down because I'm curious, what are some considerations that may be relevant with a celebrity divorce versus one that, is just like a everyday person going through a divorce? Because if you're a celebrity, they have kind of these unique, I don't want to call them obligations or responsibilities, but they communicate very publicly and often release statements and bring their fans in on what they're going through and what's a very personal matter. So, what are some of those considerations that celebrities have to go through? And is it necessary for them to do all of that communication? And is it fair?
Celebrity is just such a fascinating world to me. It's this dreamland almost, and it's fueled by people like you and me who kind of, who are intrigued by it, want to read about it, want to consume it. And so it's kind of just like like a self-fulfilling industry almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, some considerations for celebrities going through a divorce versus a non-celebrity. First and foremost, privacy. So I come from a very small town and I thought everybody knew everything about me, but to compare that to a celebrity who everybody in the world knows who you are, that's quite a stark contrast. And so see a lot of that try to control the narrative of what their divorce looks like. And I'm wondering if it's because sometimes they feel that if they don't do that, then the gossip mags are just going to like dive in even more and create their own narratives and kind of run with it. And so I think it's about trying to control that impact on their brand, their image, their career by putting out these public statements and showing where they stand. It's almost like every time you see a new celebrity divorce pop up, you can almost say, like, predict what the statement's going to say, assuming it's an amicable case. It's very much stock language at this point.
Yeah. And a lot of times we often see celebrities do joint statements because in the case of Joe and Sophie, I mean, they're both famous. They both have their own fan bases. So it's tricky when you have to still collaborate on that and you're going through something that's so personal, so challenging and difficult as it is, and then you have to add in the public. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that and then dealing with the commentary and, like you said, the headlines, the tabloids, all of them having a field day with this type of stuff. It just can't be fun. So, based on some of the celebrity divorces we've seen in the news recently, in your experience and with your expertise, is there anything noteworthy about some of these divorces, things that you've seen, or maybe a couple that has been a great example of how to handle it, or also on the flip side, maybe what not to do that we can learn from?
Sure. So I will say, in general, when it comes to celebrity divorces and any divorce, the less heated, the less tense it is, the less drama there is, means there will be less attention on them. If they simply issue a joint statement and then everything else is kind of kept under wraps, you kind of even forget that they're getting divorced until maybe you see a few months later that their divorce was finalized. So less drama usually means less attention, which is usually what their goal is, which means less negative impact, both on themselves personally and their career. Another noteworthy thing that I've noticed, and I especially saw this with, it wasn't a divorce, but it was a broken engagement. I'm not sure if you're a Bravo fan. The broken engagement of the two Summer House reality TV stars, Carl and Lindsay, that really created a lot of waves. And there was some communications around that from him that made it seem like it was a joint decision. And then she came out with her own personal statement, very vehemently denying that was the case, that she was blindsided. And so this raises the question of, do you or I guess the phenomenon that sometimes they do their own statements to show that they're on the good side or they're not the bad guy here. Again, trying to mitigate that bad press and show their fans that they're rooting for the right person. And because if you don't if you don't say anything, people are just going to assume. And as much as you may think your fans love you, they may see the other party's side of the story and be more aligned with them. And so you have to almost affirmatively take these steps to be like, no, this is what happened, getting the story straight. So some examples of what to do and what not to do that I've seen this year. One example of a case that seems quite amicable is Sofia Vergara and Joe Manganiello. They issued one of those joint statements, very boilerplate. Seems like it's been pretty respectful and private. In fact, it seems like she's been having more drama with her other ex-husband with what's happening with their embryos or
Oh, yes.
the lawsuit there. And so it's like, that's an example of how it can quickly go the other way. And you can see Sophia is both in an amicable case and a non-amicable case. And so it's very interesting to see how depends who's kind of on the other side sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know with her, with their divorce, you're right. It did kind of like they released their statement and there hasn't been a lot of chatter. But I do know that immediately, like a day or two after they released the statement, she was like out in a bikini and everyone's like, oh, look at Sophia. You know, she's back enjoying her single life, looking great. And, you know, it's just interesting to think about like watching what people do after and seeing this new chapter and wanting to root for them, you know, both Sophia and Joe to find happiness in these new chapters. It can't be easy, but it's good to see when people can, you know, move on and live their best lives and, you know, not let this cloud their experiences. So again, social media, I mean, this isn't just a factor for celebrities. I mean, everyday people have social media as well. And I think it begs the question of should everyday couples release statements or put out something to their friends and family? Like, there's just so many possible ways to go about a divorce. I've seen some friends that will just strip their entire Instagram grid of any photos and just kind of like not really say anything, but you can kind of tell what happened. So I'd love to know what you see with your clients and really what you may advise them to do, how to navigate this with their own. It's still a public persona. I mean, it's on a smaller scale, but is there a right or a wrong way to navigate this?
So in general, my advice is less is more. I know we all, and myself included, we all tend to think that everybody's thinking about us or watching what we're doing or making certain judgments about us. But really the only person who's thinking about you or judging you is normally just yourself. So I always say less is more. Be thoughtful because things that you post on social media during a divorce can have repercussions. They can have emotional repercussions, right? So if you're posting a photo of you and your new boo, and your current spouse sees that and you're in the middle of a divorce case, that might cause an emotional reaction on their part, which could cause them to dig in their heels in settlement negotiations or become more litigious. And in the end, it just delays your case and makes it harder to get divorced. It's really not worth it. It can also have legal repercussions. So if you're posting pictures of you living this lavish lifestyle, going on all these trips, going out, shopping, all of the things, traveling, you know, the lifestyle of the parties can and is taken into account in many states when determining issues like spousal support and sometimes property division, depending on your state's laws. Yeah. And so it can have real ramifications. And, you know, when I was practicing actively as an attorney and doing trials and hearings, we were admitting social media stuff or requesting social media stuff for the court all the time. It's definitely something that is capable of being introduced into court if you obtain it lawfully. So you got to be careful, and also being careful about, from a personal perspective, leaning too much into social media, right? So sometimes we use it as an escape, and an escape from processing maybe some challenging feelings, some challenging thoughts, and we go down that wormhole where we're just kind of avoiding everything that's happening. but it is still there under the surface and needs to be processed. And so you want to be careful about how much time you're spending on there and what you're looking at. So I always say consider unfollowing or muting your spouse. Maybe that sounds immature, but know thyself, right? I'm the type of person where even if I know it's going to make me feel bad, I'm still going to go look and then I'm going to feel bad.
Yeah.
I see that they moved on because we're human.
Yes.
And so know thyself. If you know that that's something that's going to bother you, just take proactive steps so that you don't end up in that situation.
Yeah. And especially when there's so much at stake, like you said, property, but also if there's children involved, like it's just not worth it to involve all of that or to have your social media content potentially be used against you. So I think that's great advice. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's something that a lot of people can implement. And like you said, less is more. So just, I don't know, put your phone down. You can still live a great life. We don't have to have the pictures as proof of everything. There's still happiness regardless of if you post it on social media or not. So, speaking of social media, though, I want to talk about yours because you host a series called Divorce Culture Friday. And I saw in one of your episodes in the series, you mentioned that the number one cited reason for divorce is career choices. And I'd love to talk about that. I mean, specifically on this podcast, we talk a lot about personal branding and career growth. So I just thought this was really interesting. Can you share more about that and why communication is such an important part of that?
Yes. So a lot of people think that the main reason people get divorced is either finances or infidelity. Career choices was the top reason, according to an article that I found. And I think it's because it relates back to the financial piece. So having, developing your respective financial roles in the marriage, right? Are we both going to be equal providers? Is one of us going to be the primary provider and the other person be the stay-at-home parent or the person who maintains the home? Whether this is addressed directly or it just kind of falls into place over time, it's not the end all be all, because if you don't clearly communicate about it, it can breed resentment later on both sides, right? So if you're the primary provider and that's your understanding, and then your spouse wants to start a career and you guys need to hire help for the kids or hire a housekeeper, and you're like, wait, we kind of had a deal here. You were going to be taking care of all of that so that I could focus on my career. On the flip side, it could create resentment from the stay-at-home spouse who perhaps left a career at the beginning of the marriage to help raise the children, but now wants to get back into their career and build that for themselves. And it just creates some tension there. So if there's not clear communication, that is what can lead to the resentment around the finances and just resentment around lost opportunities or not being able to pursue passions that are really important to people. Because at the end of the day, yes, we are a spouse and a parent, but we are also a human being first and foremost. And so
Yeah.
if we can't pursue those passions, or if we feel like we're not aligned with how each of us are pursuing our passions, that creates that tension.
Yeah, that's so true. I've been reading a lot of commentary and discussion about, having purpose in life and how a lot of us we tie our careers and our purpose, like we consider them the same thing. And I'm trying to personally change my mindset that career isn't everything, that you can find purpose in other ways, but we all, like you said, we're human. We want to find purpose in some way, whether that is your career or that passion that you want to pursue. So if that's heavy on your heart, I can see how that can kind of cause some tension, like you said. So very interesting. I wouldn't have expected that to be the number one reason. So speaking of divorce and social media, you had this other post that I thought was an interesting analogy. You said that we should start writing divorce papers like a Facebook status. What do you mean by that?
So, as somebody who used to practice full time as an attorney, I know how verbose attorneys can be. And some of it, you do have to say certain things in your documents to meet the legal requirements. But otherwise, I think we should just be keeping things clear and concise. We don't need to dig up all of the old skeletons just because. We don't need to be slinging mud just for the sake of slinging it. It only ramps up tensions and it can cause your case to drag out longer. It's usually not relevant under the law. So it's about being strategic about what facts you are including in your divorce papers and why. We're not just putting things in there to make the other person look bad, because it usually has the opposite effect, right? The judges, unless it's directly relevant under the law, the judge doesn't care. And so it's more of an annoyance. You're trying to weed through, okay, what are the real facts here that actually matter? And how can we lead with that? Another thing that irks me sometimes is, you got to remember that you married this person because you probably loved them at one point in time. So trying to be the bigger person and end this chapter of your life respectfully is going to serve you. We don't need all of the theatrics. Again, that just causes things to take longer and just ramps up the emotions and the tensions in the case, and can sometimes prevent a settlement from happening because people get so offended by what's said about them, sometimes in a public forum.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine how hard that is though. It's just there's probably a lot of times where just for the sake of moving on, maybe it's better to there's moments where you should hold your tongue, like maybe you get upset or you want to unleash or vent or turn to social media to get something off your chest, but it's not best for your path moving forward. So I'm glad that professionals like you exist. Also a big fan of therapy, of course, just to find the help that you need and to manage this in respectful ways like you mentioned. So thank you. So let's talk about the narrative surrounding divorce. I think we're on the same page with this, that we're seeing more of this positive light on divorce, that it's not this, this woe is me, your world is crashing down type of experience. And it could be for people. It's a big, major life change. But I think a lot of people are stepping into their power and again just kind of closing that chapter and finding healthy ways to start fresh. So what have you seen as far as the culture around divorce lately? What are the stigmas around it and are they changing?
Great question. I've noticed this a lot, even when I post on social media, particularly on TikTok. Um, I receive a lot of comments. Some, and they tend to be quite divided. People
Yeah.
tend to be falling on one side or the other. It takes a strong stomach sometimes.
Yeah.
But some common stigmas are divorce means you're a failure. Divorce means you're giving up, right? You said for better or for worse for the rest of your life, honor your vows. Divorce is terrible for kids. Divorce is the end of means your life is over. And so the reality that I've experienced, that I've seen, that I've personally experienced, and that I'm trying to help my clients to see as well are a few things. Like you said, divorce is the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new one. We have a book of life. This is simply one chapter in your book of life. It's not the end of the book. The next is that divorce is a powerful choice and it takes courage. You're not giving up. You are choosing a different path. Last but not least, divorce in and of itself is not what causes long-term psychological harm to kids, and studies have shown this. Rather, it is how you get divorced that determines how your kids develop and how they're impacted by it, right? And a lot of that is determined by the level and extent of conflict to which the kids are exposed. Mm-hmm. That's what's really causing the harm. We wrap it all up and say it's divorce, but that kind of conflict can occur even if you're not getting divorced, right? It's the conflict that's really the root cause of that harm. So those are really the big stigmas and the things that I'm trying to unwind, because so many of my clients deep down feel like divorce is necessary. It's what they want, but they feel frozen and they feel stuck because they're so terrified that, for example, it's going to harm their kids. Yeah. So those are kind of the things that I work on with my clients.
Yeah, like you said, it does take courage. It does take you getting to a certain point where, it is a turning point. I'm sure all these couples, they really work on it. They really try to make it work. But in some instances, it's not what's best for anyone. So what should someone do or know if they've been contemplating divorce, if they are scared to move forward, scared to go ahead and file, they can't muster up that courage, but in their heart, they know that it's the best plan for them? What advice would you have?
So, first things first, I always tell my clients that it's okay to end an okay marriage. There is no barometer or threshold that you have to meet in order to justify your decision. There doesn't have to be abuse of any kind. They don't have to be a horrible person. It can just be that you're not happy and that you see your life going in a different direction. And that's enough. A lot of my clients grapple with that. They're in those marriages that theoretically they're fine. They could stay there forever if they had to, but it's not really what they want, but they feel bad for ending a marriage and hurting that person because it's them choosing themselves. And so that's really hard for people to do sometimes. Another thing that I would say is that you want to decide how you want to get divorced and then make decisions from there, right? So often people immediately will hire an attorney. They might not need an attorney, or they might hire an attorney who's more of a litigator and they might not need litigation. They might want mediation. So a lot of people think that that's just immediately the first thing they have to do. But really, what I try to advise my clients is really design internally how you want your divorce to look and how you want it to feel, and make decisions from that place. Let that guide your decision making process. Mm-hmm. Last but not least, build your team. So, as a former attorney, I know sometimes I felt like I was trying to be a jack of all trades. My client would come to me with a real estate question or a tax question, and I would be like, I think this is it. So, don't be afraid to hire more than one person. I know it seems like a lot, but divorce impacts every single aspect of your life. Hire all of the people that correspond to the different areas of your life that are being impacted. So hire a coach and or a therapist for the emotional side, hire an attorney for the legal side, get a real estate broker, get a CPA, get these people lined up so that things can move forward seamlessly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is such great advice. And I especially appreciate what you said earlier about how sometimes this decision is nothing but personal. Maybe their partner didn't really, like you said, no abuse, nothing like really tangibly wrong. It's kind of the classic case of it's not you, it's me. And I can certainly understand why some people may feel maybe trapped in that situation. Like they feel like they need this one specific thing to happen for them to feel okay abandoning this relationship. So thank you for reminding people that it's okay, that just, your own personal well-being and happiness is enough. And, I think it works out for everyone in the end. It might be hard to get through immediately for everyone involved, but it sounds like it's what's best. So what would you say is the best way that anyone listening to this could support someone else going through a divorce?
A few things here. First and foremost, listen. And when I say listen, I mean listen with the goal of truly understanding the person's experience, asking questions, getting curious. Don't listen with the aim to fix the problem. Don't listen and then relate it back to your own experience as a way to kind of show, oh, we're all in this together. That's such a natural tendency, but listening to just understand. Keep showing up consistently. So sometimes if you reach out once, you hear the news, you reach out once, you say, I'm here for you, whatever you need. And then that person doesn't hear from you ever again. Keep showing up, keep checking in. Also ask how they would like to be supported. They may just want to vent. They may just want to process. They may just want to be emotional, or they may want you to go out to dinner with them or get coffee, right? So let them decide how they want you to support them, because that's one additional way to make the experience more empowering for them when so many things seem outside of their control.
Yeah. Again, great advice. Very helpful for anyone listening. I'm sure that we've all been in these situations wanting to support a friend, and those are great reminders. So thank you so much. Kara, is there anything else you want to add to this conversation? Again, shedding light on social media and divorce, navigating all this. I think you've shared a lot of helpful tips already, but anything else to add before you go?
I would just say, as with all decisions that you make with respect to divorce, start with yourself. And it's sometimes it can be really hard, especially if you're a people pleaser or you have kids. But in order to show up as your best self, you've got to take care of yourself. And this is getting hammered and hammered into people over and over again, and yet we're still struggling with it. So always start with yourself, check in with your body. Your body is going to tell you, your body and what you're feeling is going to tell you a lot. Your brain's going to try and talk you out of things sometimes. And so it's important to have that mind body connection and really bring your body into the mix as well, and not just let your brain do all of the work.
Yeah, I'll quote our friend Olivia here. I remember she told me her word of the year, and a word that she always comes back to is intuition. So listening to yourself, listening to that intuition. If you know in your heart that something isn't working for you, it is okay to do what you have to do to make things right. So I know it's not always easiest, but people like you definitely help people through this. So thank you so much. Where can people find you, connect with you, tune into your Divorce Culture Friday? I love that series. I'm going to drop all the links, but anything else you want to share about your services and how people can connect?
Sure. So my two main offers, I'll go through them very quickly. So the first one is called Contemplation. This is 4 coaching sessions, and it's for you if you are considering divorce and you would like support around processing fears, facing the issues and challenges that might be holding you back, and just feeling more confident about your decision. And then the other main offer is called Activation, and this is 8 coaching sessions, and it's for you if you are on one of these 3 tracks. You're either decided on divorce and you're ready to really move forward in a tangible way. You are in the thick of divorce and you're feeling really burnt out and frustrated and need some extra support. Or you have just wrapped up your divorce and you're feeling maybe overwhelmed by that blank slate, the next chapter that's ahead of you, right? So all of those are great opportunities for people to join Activation. So those are the 2 main ways I work with clients. I have a couple of other small ways that you can find on my website, KaraFrancisCoaching.com, and my Instagram is @KaraFrancisCoaching.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you offer services through every stage, before, during, and potentially after a divorce. So Kara, thank you so much for sharing your expertise today. It has been really helpful. I've loved having you on the show. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you're a fan of this podcast, be sure to subscribe, or better yet, leave a review. For marketing wisdom with a pop culture twist sent straight to your inbox, sign up for my newsletter at briannefleming.com/newsletter. Or find me on Twitter @Brianne2K. As always, thanks for listening.